Almost everyone agrees at this point that Emerald is genuine ELO hell. It doesn't mean you can't climb out of it, but boy do you see some really crazy stuff going on in this bracket. And then you pair it with the stress of being a jungler and you get games like this one. I'm a challenger jungler, I'm carrying the game for everyone, and my decision making is being questioned by my 2 and 4 Nyla. Why are we playing around topside, bro? Why aren't you playing around me? Like, okay, sorry buddy, but it's definitely worse when you're having a bad game as well. You know, even Fakers died to a gold ELO brand. Everyone messes up from time to time. In this game where I'm playing Kayn, I kind of trolled this gank and barely didn't score a kill and died. Look, my bad, sorry. But that is enough for my Zed to lose his mind, and my Lulu was also passive aggressively flaming me before I had even died. Do you want to know what happened earlier into this game? I was pathing towards bot lane wanting to play around them, and while they were full HP, I figured I'll just do my grump before I gank. And in that little bit of time, my Lulu just died out of nowhere. Then, while I clean up a kill at the very least, my Zed is getting demolished in mid lane. I even do the nice guy thing. I go out of my way to freeze and save Zed's lane. If a jungler ever did this for me, I would be on my hands and knees worshipping them. But still, this Zed and Lulu are the ones flaming me. What the hell? Look at these scores I had to deal with. Just 5 minutes into this Graves game, and my top and bot look completely hopeless. And during the Kayn game, at some point my team was losing, and worst of all, I was weak along with them. Despite how bleak those games actually look, I'm going to show you how I easily carry them anyway. Now of course I'm a challenger player and I have the mechanics and good decision making, so I can easily win these kind of games like 95% of the time even. But if you follow the very simple 2-step guidelines I'm going to outline for you, you can start winning these kind of games like 30 to 50% of the time. That is insane for your win rate, by the way. Turning around lost games that consistently will get you a ton of LP, and what I'm going to teach you is very easy to do. In fact, it's so simple, at some point I guarantee you'll be like, okay, surely there's more to it than that. But then I'll tell you why this all works. Of course, everything I'm going to teach you to do will be way more effective if you have the fundamentals of jungle already down. Thankfully, my buddy Hexadecimal has made an absurdly comprehensive 5-chapter course on everything there is to know about jungling. And when I say comprehensive, I mean comprehensive. He talks about everything there is to know for climbing as a jungler. Not only that, but then he's taken a random low elo subscriber of ours and is now coaching them on their climb. In this course, you'll see hours and hours of content that will show you how a lower elo player is learning the game to climb quickly with his guidance. You'll get to see the mistakes he's making and how it's all being corrected quickly. And then on top of that, we have a course kept up to date on the best clears for a ton of jungle champions. Our jungle content is insane thanks to him, and I highly recommend signing up if you want to improve quickly. And as always, if you don't improve while actively using our service, you can simply request your money back. There's no risk and a lot of potential reward. So use the discount link below if you really want to improve for a cheaper price. Alright, let's discuss the key concept I use to come back in so many seemingly lost games. This is something many of you already know how to do, you just don't do it consistently enough. You see, jungle is broken, well, in a lot of different ways. Let me go on a quick little side rant here. I think the most ridiculous thing junglers have is infinite mana. Do you see my mana bar right now? That is how much I'm regenning every single second. And do you guys know where that applies? Every single spot on the map that isn't a lane or the base, you have infinite mana. You literally can't go Sorry, I need to rant about that every time I possibly can. Jungle is my secondary role, so when I play mid, boy does that really upset me. The jungle mechanic I'm abusing to come back in these games is a little sillier though. This is important and step one of winning games that look doomed, so listen up. As a jungler, it is almost impossible to fall behind unless you freak out and panic. You've all surely experienced or seen ridiculous screenshots where one jungler is doing very well, but the other is somehow the same level or even higher at times. Now, technically this isn't a jungle thing, it just so happens that when a low level player kills a higher level one, they get a lot more experience. So even if you did well early on, it doesn't mean you'll always be ahead. But the reason this is way more common to see in jungle is because of all the built-in systems put in place to make it really hard for junglers to fall behind. You have jungle pet treats, comeback experience, invade protection, and so on. The enemy jungler used to be able to leave one little monster, which made invading way more potent. Nowadays, if someone steals one of your camps, it actually isn't that bad. I'd say it's more of an ego thing in the current era of jungle. If someone takes your camp, they're just putting it on on a reset timer, and when it respawns, it'll be worth even more experience. If I'm being honest, I rarely feel bad about losing camps these days. Sometimes it is unironically helpful for the enemy jungler to invade you, which I am personally not a fan of gameplay design wise, but it is what it is. So what I'm getting at is really simple. As long as you keep farming the camps that you can get efficiently, following the rules that we teach, and you maybe pick up a kill here or there, you're gonna be strong every game no matter what. It is almost guaranteed that you will be strong. Now hold on, I'm not saying you're gonna have much game impact. You may lose a lot of objectives. The enemy jungler may gank more than you if you're just farming. Your team is 100% gonna flame you, but you will be strong almost no matter what is happening in the game. I review games like this one all the time. I wish I was lying. Look at this Talia. She is 0-3 and she's basically the same experience as the enemy Kayn. Cool. The reason you sometimes don't feel this way and you feel like the game is impossible and you're really far behind is because a lot of you end up panicking, and worst of all, you start strategizing. Ugh. You guys have surely heard advice like this before. I know you have. Hey, you really need to play around your strong teammates and ignore those who are losing. This gives you a higher percentage chance of making plays that work. If you keep trying to force around bad players, of course things are going to go wrong. Or maybe other advice like, if you can't contest the enemy jungler, then while they're making a play on one side of the map, you need to make a play on the other side. This is known as cross-mapping, and it's how you'll have pressure even when you're weaker. I'm not saying this is bad advice. In fact, it's actually really good advice. But I find that junglers, especially when they're behind, tend to over-focus on strategies like these, and they ignore every other fundamental they've ever learned. They're just strategies that you can use, but you shouldn't hard force these things all the time. Heck, even what I'm going to teach you in this video, you shouldn't always do. I promise you, no other role is as weird as jungle when it comes to the players when they're behind. I see some crazy stuff on the regular when I review or coach games. What is this guy even doing? I genuinely couldn't tell you. That wasn't an Iron ELO clip, by the way. It was Emerald. He just went in and died. Personally, I think it's something to do with the expectations of the role. Like as a jungler, you can't just give up every objective. You can't be outganked. You need to have pressure. Otherwise, players will flame you and say jungle diff or whatever. I feel like these things get to the average player and they just do the most ridiculous stuff because they think they have to do something. In reality, the way you come back is simple, and I'll teach you why this works soon. You just keep farming and making plays around where your camps are spawning. Let me show you what I mean. During this Kayn game where I fell very far behind as I showed you, I had another unfortunate death early on. I was doing grubs when I saw Diana going top. Unfortunately, my Volibear, of course, just let himself be eaten, and by then I felt committed. I could have definitely backed off here, but I got baited and died. Whatever. When I respawn and get back out on the map, I'm just doing my camps, then my Zed dies and he hits me with the, like, come on man. This is important. Bot lane is being shoved in and spamming for help, and dragon is up. But notice how I don't care. I have 3 camps in top and only 1 in bottom, so I go top and farm. Doesn't matter that the game is crumbling and everyone is losing, I'm not gonna panic. I promise you there is a reason for this. The simple obvious play is what will help you recover, not some strategy around strong siding someone or whatever. As I clear, I notice that Diana is on the boss side of the map and her blue buff is coming up. Now when you see an opportunity, you can of course use the strategies that we and others teach. So from here, I will cross map and invade her camps for a bit. Notice my mindset in the game. I don't really care what anyone wants. I'm just farming, and if I see an opportunity around me, I'll go for it. If not, I won't. It doesn't mean I'm AFK farming. It just means to be patient and don't force something to make an epic comeback. Just relax and don't let yourself fall behind in your clears. But like I said in my commentary, I saw an opportunity and I ganked mid. Okay, clearly I'm an idiot and I also make stupid calls like all of you do as well from time to time. This is the point in the game where I started getting flamed way more because the game is starting to look hopeless, right? Or is it? As I'm looking at the scoreboard, do you notice how I'm not really that weak? I have a full eclipse at 9.5 minutes. Also, I'm the same level as Diana, who is very, very fed. I'll tell you how I convert this into a win soon, but this first step is really important. If you only make plays around your camps, it means that even if your play is garbage, like the one I just made, then you will have farmed and you will be strong regardless of the outcome. Don't just randomly start objectives or overforce to help a lost lane, just play for your camps as you normally would. In this Graves game, I follow the same principle. Trust me, I do not want to play around this Camille. I would prefer to play around my Syndra, my one actual good teammate, but as I'm passing by Raptors and Wolves, there's nothing to do mid. She's so I don't play around her. On the other hand, as I get to Gromp, I see a potential play top. So what do? I gank top, despite not wanting to play around this Camille. But a play is a play, so I went for it and I got rewarded. Okay, if this doesn't feel like helpful advice and it just sounds like I'm pointing out some really obvious stuff, that's because I am. I told you at the start of this this video, most of what I'm doing is really basic and stuff you can easily do as well. But I think most of you just need to hear it. Coming back in games like this is just a mental thing. You need to not overthink things. You need to keep farming and prioritizing yourself. Also, it's not like I'm AFK clearing. You can still make plays around any lane, strong or weak lanes, doesn't matter. It's low elo, stop overthinking. Just make sure you don't go out of your way for these plays. If you remember, that's why my Nilo was criticizing me at the start of the video. I was making plays topside because I had camps topside. I'm not playing around a specific lane. I'm just playing around where my camps are. That's really all there is to it. So that's all there is to step 1. The goal is simple. Keep farming efficiently and make plays along your route. Don't panic and keep things simple. If you properly do this, you will be strong no matter how dire the game is. I guarantee it. And this brings us to step 2, which is how you actually come back in the game. Now, I've joked quite a bit in this video about how broken jungle is, and yet there is another thing you can abuse that is unique to this role. As a jungler, you are completely free from lane responsibilities. You have to understand what laning is like so you can punish it. As a laner, I can't just recall whenever I want. I must set up a recall timer. If I base at a bad time, I could lose 2 waves, I could lose 2 plates, give my opponent lane priority. Recalling at a bad time could lead to a complete disaster, or the wave could be frozen against me and so on. Likewise, I can't just ditch my lane to randomly go fight in the river. If there's a big wave pushing into me, I can't move. I just can't. I will lose so much if I do. As a jungler though, you don't have any of these problems. I feel like most junglers don't truly appreciate enough that you can just do whatever you want, whenever you want most of the time. At worst, you'll lose a couple of your camps if you're not farming efficiently, which as we discussed before, doesn't really matter too much these days. This is why I spent so much time emphasizing how important it is to play selfishly and make sure you're strong by farming. If you accomplish this, you can now dominate the map the second you hit a spike. Let me show you how it's done. During my Graves game, I'm clearing my Gromp and realize I have enough gold for my item. I don't even bother going for that scuttle crab that's spawning in the river. Why? Because the gold it would give me wouldn't change what I would be basing for anyway. I have exactly enough gold to spike. I have no tower responsibilities, so I can just recall literally the second I have enough gold for an item. Once I'm in base and buy my item, let's press tab. Look at the enemy inventories. Most of them have not recalled yet. Riven probably had enough gold for her Eclipse at the moment, but she hadn't found a base timer yet, so she wasn't that strong at the moment. Volibear is also definitely sitting on some gold, even if he is behind. Garen is maybe missing like 2 long swords from his inventory. Kai'Sa is 100% missing a big component, and Nami is maybe missing tier 1 boots or something. This is precisely what you're looking for as a jungler. Even if top and bot lane are getting completely owned, it doesn't matter that much if the enemy hasn't based and spent their gold yet. Which brings me to my next key point. I've spammed you this entire guide with how you need to play around your camp. Always be farming, farm. But that is mostly when you're building up to an item. The value of doing your camps is really high when you're close to an item and every bit of gold gets you just that little bit closer. But right after completing an item, as I just did, the value of doing your camps drops significantly. That's because getting some gold doesn't matter as much to you right now. I'm not about to base to buy a longsword, right? I already have my completed item. So notice how I skip my red and go straight mid to shadow my Syndra. Right now, I want to fight. I'm looking for any action possible because I'm basically guaranteed to win while the enemy hasn't spent their gold. Unfortunately, I don't see a play immediately, so I go do my red in the meantime. But notice how I don't go to Krugs after doing red. Again, my goal right now is to fight. I am looking very aggressively for any action because this is as strong as I'm gonna get relative to the enemy team. Finally, I notice the Volibear is basing in bot lane, so I can run on over and flank the enemy duo. I kill Nami, and now with nothing else to do, I can go back to farming my camp. There's a reason this works so effectively in lower brackets. You see, in high elo, players are really good at playing around their power spikes. A lot of good players set up their recalls 2 or even 3 waves in advance to base at the correct times, so they're always playing on their spike properly. Good players don't overstay in lane with a lot of gold when they don't need to. On the other hand, low elo players do not set up proper recall timers and they consistently overstay on the map. Secondly, if you ever watch a high elo player, you will notice that many of them spam tab and bring up their scoreboard all the time. Almost every single challenger player I've ever watched does this. It is very aggressive at times even. Like, okay, relax, you don't need to press tab every single second. But we're doing this because we're constantly monitoring our opponent's power spikes. People in low elo don't really play around their own spikes very well, and I can promise you, they're definitely not playing around your spike. And finally, even if someone on the enemy team is actually smart at the game, and they're properly playing around their own spikes and yours, their teammates aren't going to be. Someone on the enemy team is guaranteed to be greedy, not playing around spikes, or they're having trouble finding a recall timer. As a jungler, since you can play anywhere on the map at all times, you at some point will find a timing window to punish someone who is great at the recall timers and hasn't spent their gold. It's nearly 100% guaranteed to happen. I have never had it not happen. Now let's see it in action during the Kayn game. So right now, I was still following step 1. I was clearing my bot side camp and my raptors were up, so I figured I would transition gank through mid lane towards my top side. I was just playing around my camps. Unfortunately, Diana counter ganked me, and that was well played to her. My Volibear killed her at the very least, and now we can look at the scoreboard. Do you see how I'm a higher level than Diana even though she's super fed and I've been misplaying the whole game? Very cool, right? Now keep in mind that dying is the same as recalling, so coming out of base I will be very strong, especially since I just got my form. At the same time, I noticed Tahm Kench killing my Volibear. Okay, let's press tab. I am very strong right now. Like I said, I'm on a big spike. Meanwhile, Kench is kind of winning top lane, but look at his inventory. He has not based in forever. Then, as I'm coming out of the base, look how much I'm pressing tab. Tab, 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 tab. I'm gathering info while I'm walking. When I see Nasus, I press tab again. Let's pause one more time. Look at the enemy top side. Diana and I are basically around the same strength. We've also established that Tahm Kench hasn't base, and Nasus is still not at his big power spike yet. So what do I want to do right now? That's right, I want to fight while the enemy solo laners either haven't spent their gold or they haven't finished their first item spike yet. Look how I skip my Krugs and Raptors and go straight to the grubs because I'm looking for a fight. I see Diana and Kench on them, but I'm not afraid. I've already established Kench is beyond useless right now, so I know it's basically a 1v1 between me and Diana, and I also know that Kayn is a very good matchup into her champion. It's just champion knowledge. You should know what your champion is good at, and so I end up destroying them completely on my own. I'm not saying you guys are going to be able to pull off a 1v2 or 1v3 like this. I don't expect you to, but the concept I used to know that I could fight here is pretty easy to learn. It shouldn't be hard to implement for you. A little later into that game, watch as my Volibear dies top to Zeri, and as I'm spending all my gold, my Zed does as well. Lovely. Okay, same concept as before. I've just spent all my gold. It is also usually a very good time to fight after the enemy has committed resources into killing your teammates. Kench somehow still doesn't have a single completed item. What a guy. 2, I should assume that some ults or summoners are down. My team surely didn't die without them using nothing. And 3, I ideally want to fight right now. I've just spent all my gold, I'm as strong as I'm going to get. Meanwhile, the enemy team just killed my teammates, so they're sitting on a lot of gold. I would rather fight them before they spend it, right? Now, of course, the fight is going to be a combination of Kayn being a bit broken at this point in the game and the Zeri turbo griefing it to kill the tower, but my point remains. I'm fighting after I've just spent all my gold, so I look stronger than my score would indicate. Finally, and most importantly, the opposite to this concept is also relevant. Back to my Graves game, I just killed Garen, got a tower, and an entire wave. I am sitting on a ton of gold. Riven's coming. Riven, yeah, we should not fight here. That's why I'm just gonna base. I'm leaving because she's coming out of base after having just spent all of her gold while I still have a ton to spend. Don't make the opposite mistake, especially when your team is losing. You cannot afford to fight while your opponents have fully bought and you're sitting on a gold mine yourself. And that's basically how you win games even where everything is going wrong. You prioritize yourself. You don't freak out and you try to strategize your way back into the game. Just farm and make plays around the camps you're currently on. Then, make sure to play on your spikes aggressively and fight around enemy players that haven't base. And that is honestly most of what it takes to come back and win games in lower brackets. Obviously, mechanics and decision making help, but that is most of it. One final bonus tip is to primarily look for smaller scale fights. In a 1v1 versus someone, you have complete agency. Whether it goes right or wrong is entirely up to you. On the other hand, if League was a 20v20 game, you'd have far less agency every game, right? Because you are playing very selfishly this way and playing around your own spikes, you do want to avoid larger confrontations because fighting with your weak teammates is going to be very inconsistent. Like in this example, I was trying to do Dragon, but my bot lane overstayed and got engaged on. Notice how far back I am. This is one of those larger scale fights I want to avoid where I'm going to have a lot less personal agency. I really don't want to get caught up in it. Now, of course, maybe I played it a little bit too safe, but I do think it's better to be safe than sorry at the end of the day. I want you to play for smaller scale fights 1v1s, 2v1s, or 2v2s. Fights where you have way more agency will allow you to come out on top more often, helping you come back more consistently. And of course, if you really want to be consistent, again, I highly recommend signing up to SkillCap, especially for access to our insanely detailed jungle courses. The advice I've given here today will be infinitely more useful when paired with all the other fundamentals you need to know. And again, there is a massive course where our jungle expert Hexadecimal is coaching a subscriber to higher ELOs, which can help you learn to apply all of the stuff we teach and some of the growing pains you're going to encounter along your climb. Our jungle content is absolutely amazing, and I do recommend checking it out, especially with the special discount link, which you'll find below. And again, if you don't improve while actively using our service, you get your money back. No questions asked. Alright, that's going to be a wrap on this one. As always, thanks for watching. See you next time.